you, in that sitting that moment, would you then go borrow a loan, get a car loan, and put the money back in the bank?
Right.
That's the question. And everybody would say no.
No, yeah.
Right.
So the answer is easy. You just have
Hey, Crossroads Online. So glad you could be joining us here today for our Face Up Q&A. This is an opportunity where we have to answer some questions that have been submitted about the particular topic that we went through this past weekend through the message. In Face Up Relationships, we're really just asking this question, just like how you play cards. Like, we want to go face up. We want to be authentic with what we have in our lives, and particularly when it comes to the topic of finances. And so we're covering topics like dating, sex, finances, and parenting. And Pastor Brian took the message this past weekend. Great message. Way to go. How are you feeling about it?
Oh, great. Yeah, it was fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really good.
Good. So we have Pastor Brian here today and Ross Patridge. Ross, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Ross Partridge. Been heavily involved with Financial Peace, Dave Ramsey's organization. Became a master financial coach through them, and loved it. Loved the ministry, and it's a great time.
Yeah, became debt free as a result of it too.
I personally walked through it, became debt free, 100% house, everything.
That's
and
awesome. Now, before you retired, what did you do?
I was a senior project manager for the winery.
Oh, that's awesome. For Gallo, right?
Yeah,
that's so cool.
So I did a lot of capital projects and stuff, finances, so that's sort of in my wheelhouse.
That's awesome. Well, we want to make sure that we brought some experts for you guys to be able to just kind of get an inside scoop on how to work with your finances in a way that honors God and just sets you up for life, because we don't want finances to rule over us. We want to be able to use finances for God's glory. So thank you for wherever you're joining us in today, whether on Facebook or YouTube. If you go to crossroadsgrace.org/online, there we'll have our online platform for you. And we have a chat host available for you. Ashley, our chat host. Hi, Ashley. So glad you could join us today.
You're amazing, Ashley.
Yeah, you're fantastic. Thanks for doing this. Ashley will be able to answer any questions that you might have in the chat. She'll be putting some links in the description as well. And if you have questions for us live, I have my computer right here that we can spitball and answer some of those as well. So I encourage you to jump onto our online campus. And if you're watching this later, this is all about our series that we've been going through, Face Up Relationships. And I encourage you to go to our website, crossroadsgrace.org/services, in order to watch the service from the weekend before, the one that we're talking about, and even previous messages as well. Guys, thank you for joining us. And Pastor Brian, I had a question about your message that you had. One of the things that you said in there that was really great, it was kind of in the context of relationships. You says, in the perceived valiant attempt to avoid an argument when it comes to finances or get someone upset, money turns into a persona non grata in the relationship. And usually the reality is, the reality will either be one of two things. It will be ignored collectively, whatever happens, happens, or all the responsibility is placed onto one person in a relationship to shoulder under the guise of they're better with money than I am. So my question is to you, like, what if someone was listening in on that part of the message, or listening in now, and they feel like they're in that position right now? What would you suggest that they take steps with their partner in trying to figure out how they can to move past that moment where they're in that?
Yeah, well, one thing I would just remind is, if you haven't had a chance to watch the message, we talked about 5 cards, the 5 Ds that we kind of walk through, this idea of dedication, devotion, discernment, direction, and discipline. So these 5 Ds. Again, watch the message, you have a chance to understand a little bit more. But when I was really thinking about it, I really think it comes down to that first D when we're starting to think about it, because it really comes down to dedication. Is it our money, or is it my money? Is it, and when it comes down to that, is that if you start to put the pressure on somebody else, you're saying, you handle it, it's all your money anyway. You've heard probably couples say that, I just go and I make the bucks and you spend the bucks, like this whole it's us versus them. So I think the real question you have to ask before you can kind of dive into that is, hey, are we in this together, or are we in this apart? And if you're in it together, it's amazing what you can accomplish and what goals you can accomplish, what problems you can solve. But man, when you have one person on one page and one person on the other page, we talk at Financial Peace University, that's a difficult road to kind of go up. So I'm curious what your thoughts on that
too.
Well,
I mean, what I would do in that situation, whoever's feeling the pressure, like they need things to change, I would tell the other spouse how you feel. How it's impacting your feelings and stuff, and keep it on how you're feeling, not on what they're doing to you, because if you're in a loving marriage, they'll probably want to change your behavior. If somebody's hurting somebody with something emotionally or whatever, they're going to probably want to change. And so if you just tell them, hey, this is really impacting me, I'm having a hard time with it, and what can we do together?
Well, and I do think it's important to say that there are people that are better at money than others. Like it's not like those are it's God's gifted people in certain ways, and so having someone that like is in charge of those things isn't bad. It's more when you kind of take your hands off the wheel and say, well, sweetheart, you got to figure it out, and then when anything goes wrong, well, it's your fault, not my fault, because I didn't have anything problem with it. So empowering somebody is different than I think just kind of like completely being apathetic to it. So, so to your point, having a great relationship, connecting with them, having a good relationship is so important about everything, but especially when it comes to finances.
Yeah, how do we solve this together?
Yeah, together.
That's really good. That's really good. Well, let's dive into our questions for today. And if you're interested in submitting questions for next week, we have a QR code in the corner of the screen. That QR code will take you to our Connect page. And then click on Face Up Relationships Q&A. And for the upcoming message, you can ask questions, and we'd love to be able to answer them for you. And really the first question that we have submitted is, there's a really great one. As a college student, I'm juggling tuition, textbooks, and living expenses. I stay up late with anxiety, wondering how am I going to pay for all of this? How can I manage my finances responsibly while also staying focused on my studies?
Yeah. I'd love you to take a shot at that
first thing
first one.
to me is, it sounds to me whether this person really has a budget.
Yeah.
Are they really in control? Do they really know where every dollar is going?
Yeah.
Because if you do that, if you actually have an on-purpose budget before each month, you're going to know where your money is, and there's a real sense of peace that comes along with that. It's more than just money. It's really about, hey, I know where the guidelines are, where the rails are, and if I accomplish that, if I set that out, then I'm going to be in great shape.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to college too, there's always this misconception about college is that there's the assumption that to go to college you have to be in debt.
Right.
That there's no way you could possibly go to a university. And my goodness, we read so many opportunities where you can go to junior colleges to get these prerequisites taken care of before you go off to a 4-year, if that's something it's, and I mean, Financial Peace talks all about that, and I've seen that myself.
Yeah, stay with, if you're going to a university, stay within state, you'll save 30% on that. And they say most students will actually have better performance if they actually find a part-time job. Because there's downtime anyway.
Yeah.
So if you're working a part-time job, you're learning, skills, and you're actually growing your resume of work experience, even at that young age.
Yeah, particularly you can pick a field to work in or an internship or something like that.
Yeah.
That was kind of my story. I was able to get, I went to Bible school. I pretty much had 2 months of savings set up. I worked a job at Pizza Hut. Worst job I ever had, hands down. Worst job.
Well, clearly Pizza Hut will not be sponsored.
Clearly. But one of the things that was just consistent is that just God provided, right? Seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things, meaning what you need for the day is going to be added. And so I just trusted God as we stepped into that, and it was probably more dumb naivety than it was trust, to be honest, if I'm looking back at it. But it really just, God was faithful throughout, and working jobs and internships, was able to help with that whole experience. And so it's definitely possible, for sure. But
well, and I would also say that we talk a lot about debt being terrible, and you don't want to be in debt, and I don't want us to be in debt either. But there are times when you do have to take a school loan out. I think, but you just kind of go into that with the understanding of, okay, this is a debt that's going to be placed into my future, as opposed to buying a big screen TV that's going to depreciate in value. Right? Your education is always hopefully appreciating. You're not going to a 4-year school, $70,000 a semester to do basket weaving. Hopefully it's going to produce a good income.
Just make sure it's in something that's going to pay off financially, that it's going to be something that's going to get a rate of return for that investment that you're investing in yourself. Right?
Yeah, 100%.
That's good. All right, well, let's get to the next question. And it's this. I often feel like I'm missing out on spending time with my friends, going on vacations, and having fun times because everything they do is so expensive. How can I manage my spending while also not letting my financial situation get too out of hand?
Yeah, well, I think this is a product of a lot of you grow. I think the old adage, people nowadays want to have what their parents had now, as opposed to your parents that had to build into that to be able to get to what they have. So I come back to Habakkuk 2:3 in the ESV. I love it. It says, "The vision waits the appointed time. It hastens till the end. It will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay." So there's this beauty in patience. There's beauty in waiting. because there's all kinds of things that you learn along the way as you're going through that. So this idea of spending time with friends and not wanting to miss out, the whole FOMO type of thing, I think we have to wrestle with the idea of fear of missing out now, but what are you gaining in the future by being patient and not saying I've got to have now what everybody else has now? What would you add to that?
Yeah, I mean you need to have peace at where you're at. So if you can't afford to go on a vacation with your friends, they should understand that. And you should be, okay, I'm I'm staying within a budget. My money's making it through each month. There's comfort in that.
Yeah.
And as soon as you start pushing outside of that and trying to do more of that, there's always bad things, emotions and everything that come with it.
Yeah.
I have Proverbs here, 21:5, plans of a diligent lead to profit, as surely as haste leads to poverty. So.
Now, my wife and I say this quite a bit to each other because you see everything from the outside and you're like, oh man, Dan's got this, and you've got this, and everybody's got this.
I know.
And we sometimes say, are we the crazy ones? Like, because we're saving, we want to get out of debt, we want to pay off our house, but everybody else is doing all these stuff. So you get caught up in everything else. You've got to stay laser locked in what God's calling you to do, and understand that you're not crazy. You're just being faithful, and you're trying to accomplish what God's calling you.
I think too, I think your message really pointed on it, paying attention to the direction and staying focused on that. Because when we live in our moments, even if it's like a month or two, oh man, it'd be so great to be sitting on a beach in Hawaii, reading a book right now, But I think the sense of which paying attention to what's your further goal. And some of the things that I've done is even name bank accounts, X amount of dollars goal by date. That's the name of my bank account. And that helps me keep focused on, okay, no. Every time I see the account, I know that that's the next thing that I want to be paying attention to.
Good.
Yeah,
not just what's happening
really good,
now.
Yeah, good.
So next question is, as I approach retirement, I'm concerned about having enough funds to maintain a comfortable lifestyle. How can I trust God while also making practical financial preparations?
Yeah, you probably talk with quite a few people about that.
I would say, first off, in order to, you need to know what your expenses are, actual expenses are, before as you roll into retirement. So you have to have, we always go back to the budget, but after months and months, you would say, hey, I need X amount. And so I need that times 12. And all of a sudden, okay, that's my goal. And you've got that nailed down. And then we always say on the Ramsey website, there's a retirement calculator.
Yeah.
Because retirement's really not about an age. I mean, it's really more about finances.
Yeah.
If I gave you $10 million, you may be retired right now.
Yeah.
So you can go on there and actually see what number you need in retirement.
Yeah.
And that maybe leads you to maybe staying a little longer in work or all that.
And where can they find that calculator again?
It's on the Dave Ramsey's website.
I'm going to challenge Ashley right now.
Yeah.
To be able to find that link.
I think that's awesome.
So
Ashley, if you could look for that would be really awesome.
Go.
Maybe you could find it. Boom. Hit it up. That would be good.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the other thing is, although this person is saying, hey, I'm approaching retirement, we can learn a lot from those that are approaching retirement if you're not approaching retirement. And so starting early certainly helps to be able to think about where you're going, right? The old Franklin Covey ideas begin with the end in mind. So if you are of age to be able to put money away, it's never too early to start retirement, but also to understand that it's also not too late too, that there's always some great things that God's going to do and to provide. Again, we talk about not worrying and anxiety, but trusting in God to provide through that whole situation.
Yeah, so, I feel like by the first half after I turned 18, that my life was concerned about getting the degree, getting the job, be able to pay for just life and living. Right. And once the debt is paid off, then I can worry about the house or the more expensive things. What would you advise someone? Maybe Ross is a good question for you. How would you advise someone who's dealing with, maybe they're in their mid 30s or early 40s, they still have college debt, and they have all this other debt accumulated from cars or maybe even credit cards. Where would you encourage them to start?
Well, I mean, it's Dave Ramsey has the 7 baby steps, and if you follow those every time, $1,000 in bank, baby step 1, baby step 2, get out of debt snowball, and that everything goes towards that.
So talk about the debt snowball, because I don't think everybody.
So the debt
knows
snowball is a little bit different because it's not based upon interest rate. So maybe for the first time in your lives, you actually write them down on paper, how much you owe and what the interest rates are, and then you actually put them in the smallest order, the smallest that you owe to the largest you owe.
Yeah.
And you work them. Don't worry about the interest rates, and you work those that way.
Yeah.
I mean,
And so it snowballs out. So
yes,
yeah.
my late wife and I had 12 credit cards, $55,000 in credit card debt. The smallest one was $300, so that was the first one we go.
Yeah.
Largest one was $24,000. So if we worked it in that plan, and as you pay one off, you take that payment and you add it to the next one in line.
Yeah.
And the payment actually starts rolling. I thought, no way I'd ever pay off the 24,000. By the time it was the last one up, I mean, that thing was gone in 6 months.
Yeah.
Because we had so much of the payments from the other debt.
Yeah. Because then after you're debt free, then the next thing you do, obviously,
Then the next thing to do is go back to your savings in 3 to 6 months of expenses. That's just expenses. And then you start investing or saving for a house at that point. But if you get those out of whack, you're trying to do too many things, and you can't make progress.
Yeah.
And it's patience, like you talked about, Pastor. Step by step by step, and so that's really, you've got to do them in order. Because if you're trying to do, saving for retirement, and you're trying to pay off your student loans and stuff, you need your largest wealth building tool you have is your income, and you need to not, give most of it away. I think average Americans today spend about 25% of every dollar they bring home on debt. And if you can get out of debt, that's 25%.
Yeah, that's significant.
That's a huge raise.
That's significant.
Yeah, it's having a plan. Yeah, having a plan, working the plan, sticking to the plan.
That's right.
That last D that we talked about was discipline. You got to be disciplined.
Right.
And I think that probably is the hardest part for our society right now is the discipline aspect. You see it in all kinds of different things. But we want what we want it now. And the idea of having to wait just seems just so unfair and unjust. So if you have a plan, you stick to that plan, and you continue to have your goals in mind ahead of you, it's amazing what you'll accomplish.
That's right.
Yeah, we're the most marketed society ever. And so I don't know how many thousands of promotions hit you, your Facebook, Instagram, all that, just coming at you like crazy. And so they're coming for your money.
Yep.
So you have to have like an allergic reaction to debt. Once you get to that place, you're at debt free. I don't want it. I don't care. That's it.
Ashley got that retirement plan
I
calculator
knew
in there.
would.
Good job,
Yes,
Ashley.
all right.
Way to rock it. Love it. So proud of you.
That's a great tool.
It is. I'm actually.
It's a little scary, but once you see that number, then you have a target. Because when you're running a race, if you just start off running, you don't know if it's 100 yards or if it's 20 miles. And so you'll get tired after a while.
Yeah. Well, after this, I'll calculate it and I'll probably pass out. That's okay.
Yeah.
All right. So here's the next one. I think we kind of talked about that a little bit. But this next question is, my wife's spending habits are causing real financial strain. She keeps on building up credit card debt and even getting new credit cards that I don't know about until thousands of dollars have built up on them. What should I do, and how should we get this thing figured out?
You have to start at the root. You have to start at the root. So why is this happening? Why are we choosing to do these things? Because clearly it's her and him on either side of this conversation. So the biggest thing you have to do is you have to get on the same page. If you're not, you're just running in these opposite directions, expecting somehow the paths will eventually cross. And then obviously I think there's probably some pain that's there for some reason, probably something that she's wrestling with for her to want to do that, knowing that it was just going to cause a rift in their relationship. Nobody does that and says, you know what, he's going to be fine if I rack for 60 grand. No, so there's probably embarrassment with it and things like that. But so communication with it, being on the same page, I think is really important. And when it comes to this type of debt, what do you?
I mean, I would I would just have it tell the person how you feel. This may sound a little harsh, but I would maybe sometimes, depending how active this person is, it might be financial infidelity in a way.
Yeah.
Because they're doing in a covert way and everything.
Behind the back, yeah.
Which is very destructive. And so really what you have to do is you tell the person you love in a kind way, this is really affecting me, and they should respond to that. And then if they don't, we always say that maybe it's more of a relationship thing than a money thing, and maybe you need to get some counseling, marriage counseling or something to find, just like you see, Pastor, find out what the root cause of all that is.
Yeah.
And then taking a financial peace class is really huge, because I always say that's more of a relationship class, not a financial class.
You're true.
For couples, it's all about relationship, because we all have a relationship with money. And if we're have different relationships in our spouse, that causes a lot of conflict.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I ask newlywed couples that I meet with, I ask them, I say, what is what is the mission that you're on together? Like what is, as we call ourselves, Team Hunt. So what do you want Team Hunt to be known for? What are you what are you moving towards? And it sounds like they probably don't have that.
Right.
Like if you're just spending and doing whatever, it's obviously all about you, but what is it about together you're trying to accomplish? And if you can ever get that figured out, then all of a sudden you have a common thing to come back to and say, no, remember, we're not doing it this because we're going to be known for this. So I think being on the same page is really important.
Yeah, I think one of you mentioned it. Like, I would worry about pain in their past and understanding that, spending and buying things, it feels good. It's a dopamine kick. Like, our brains are wired to experience that. And I think paying attention to where is the hurt and the pain that is covering up with that dopamine kick they're trying to get over. And there possibly is other addictions that are going on in their life that they may not know about or they do know about. And it's a cascade of other issues that are facing it. So something like Celebrate Recovery or marital counseling is really it's part of that root problem, root solution to the problem.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's wrestling with that, you mentioned Celebrate Recovery. I think that's another great link to put in there. If you need some help with hurts, habits, and hangups, including financial stuff, we could put that in there for you. And Pastor Jimmy would love to connect with you.
That's good. All right, next question. Sometimes my husband and I disagree about which financial priorities are more important. How do we get on the same page with our financial goals that both works for our needs and our wants that may differ?
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, okay, so if you do a budget and you list everything and you put on the side category wants versus needs, obviously a mortgage is a need. You have to pay it, so it's not negotiable. So if you actually push away all the needs and see what the wants are left, then you can actually sort of agree where your money is being spent. And if you're not going on enough vacations, maybe one of you needs to mow the lawn and save $100 a month, right? As a want, right? I don't want to mow the lawn, but I'm willing to mow the lawn so I can save up for a vacation or something. So you just sort of go through your budget and like you talked about, getting on the same page with the mission, right?
Yeah, what's your mission?
What's your family, where are you guys heading for?
Yeah, if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you gotta at least start there. There, so.
That's good. That's good. Next question. Our spiritual life has been impacted by the stress of the debt we have. How can we draw closer to God and strengthen our faith as we navigate a tough financial journey?
Well, to understand first is that guilt that you're feeling is a spiritual thing, and that Satan would want nothing more than to divide your marriage, and he'll find any way that he can. And that's why a lot of the series is what we're talking about. It's through finances, it's through your sex life, it's through your kids. He's going to find a way in there, and he'll find the path of least resistance. And so, as we looked at with Judas, the path of least resistance for him to be overtaken by Satan was through money. It was through cheating Jesus. It was through getting 30 pieces of silver to be able to turn him in. And so I really think that that's something to really factor in, is that you just can't underestimate how much Satan is trying to attack that relationship. And to understand that if you know that, then the old adage, I love G.I. Joe, back in the day, he had the knowing is half the battle. That was his tagline. So if you G.I. Joe it, if you know that that's what he's trying to do, you already know it, then you don't allow that to continue any longer, and you do a Philippians 4 where you cast all your anxieties on him, and through prayer and thanksgiving, you cast all this to him. And it's the great exchange. He gives you the great exchange of your anxiety and all that stuff you give to him, and he gives you a peace that surpasses understanding. And it's a beautiful thing for us to be able to understand. So I would just say that understanding it's a spiritual issue, not letting Satan get a foothold, and realizing that if he's trying to attack you there, it must be a weak spot. So we've got to bolster that a little bit, work on that, and really bring that to Christ. So
And just jump in real quick, is one thing that really pops out on me is they're finally at the point that they're sick and tired of being sick and tired.
There it is. Yeah.
And that's the moment. I mean, most people can't walk out of debt. You can wander in it, but you can't. You got to run out of it.
Yeah.
And you need that passion. I'm sick and tired. Let's go do this. And so taking a financial peace class or something like that, getting some coaching or something, and finally just getting a plan, because you can't wander out.
No.
It has to be a plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question is, I want my kids to make better financial decisions than me and my ex-husband did. What are some ways that I can be talking to them about finances today that can set them up for a better future than we had?
Well, I think the little caveat that was added in there where it says that decisions that me and my ex-husband did, I think that's important because from a child perspective, if it's always like, well, it's your dad's fault that we're in this situation, or it's your mom's fault, well, that does twofold damage. One, it causes this rift where you're choosing mom or dad, one's the bad guy, one's the good guy. And then the other thing is that you're just kind of like pressing all of your guilt and anxiety onto that other person instead of owning what potentially is yours. So I think that you have to say, okay, it was an us thing. We got this. So, but the other thing is that kids are an amazing motivator for change in your life. I mean, you get in better shape because you want to be around longer for them. You start to go to church because you think it's important that they know God. I mean, you do all kinds of stuff for your kids. So why not use finances for that same motivation? And so there's just, great small things that you can do. There's the little piggy bank where every time they get it, you put it into change and you've got 10% to God and 10% to savings. The rest, you get to all that good stuff you can do. But if you start to demonstrate that to your kids by the way that you're living your life, it's amazing what happens. Now, I know for our kids, they love listening to Dave Ramsey when we're driving around all the time. Like the kids.
Do they really?
They do.
They really?
They do. And it's funny because they'll start saying like, how... Sell the car. Like they'll say that before anybody else says it. They just know.
That's true.
And so we're on this passionate goal that we want to pay off our house by the end of the year. And so we've got signs up all over our house of where we're going to go once we get it paid off. And
that's cool.
And so the kids are in it. They're like, oh yeah, okay, so yeah, let's not do that so we can pay off the house. And hey mom, how? And so we've got a chain link. You know when you made paper chains, kind of paper links and stuff. We got it all on our kitchen table. So every time you rip off another one, so the kids are excited to be a part of it. It's smaller and smaller. We've got a Candyland little road that we color in things all around it. But the kids are part of it. So if they see that is something beneficial, that you're being upfront about it, that God gets your first and your best, it doesn't mean that later on they won't necessarily have that as part of because they're kids and they could do but at least that seed will have been planted for them to kind of know. So that's some things that Team Hunt does. I don't know, anything you want to add?
Yeah, Proverbs 22:6, start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it. Yeah. And so it's just let them, they observe. We don't know how old these kids are. Sounds like they're not teenagers yet, but if they'll just observe you and be open about it. I came from a generation, my parents, I still don't know what they make, right?
Yeah.
But maybe you share that with them and say, hey, this is what we have, and show them how you manage your money, and then they will learn how to manage money through you. That's really good.
Well, we added one other thing, and it could be crazy, maybe a lot of people do it, but when we put in together our trusts, like we figured out the trust for our family, so if anything happened to us, they would know where the money's going and stuff. What we added in there is actually a stipulation that before any of the money would be given out of the trust to the kids, they had to demonstrate that they took Financial Peace University within the last month before they were able to take it. They had to, before any other dividend was given out, they would have to take it again. They had to show that they were going to be in church somewhere, So there's some things that you could put in if you're that retirement age, you're trying to figure some things out. Instead of the worst thing you could do is give a kid $2 million or whatever if you're super rich, and that'd be terrible if they have no way of understanding what to do with it. So
destroy them.
Yeah, we wove that into the actual expectations
That's
for them,
really
and
cool.
just something you could think about. So.
Well, I also like how you mentioned that you're really involving the kids and helping understand that you and your wife's financial goals are their goals too.
Yeah,
and you're asking them to partner with you and figuring out what that is. So maybe that's for some people. Maybe that's vacations. Okay. What money are you going to spend, like going to Disneyland, on the whatever shirt or sweater or memorabilia you want to buy there? Okay, well, are you earning the money? Are you saving the money? Are you preparing for that? And then, okay, let's talk about giving your tithe. Are you also participating in that way? Mm-hmm. So I really like how you just set that real principle up of how can I involve my kids in our financial future together? Because maybe they would be less likely to keep on asking for those toys. Maybe they'd be less likely for consistently, wanting to go eat out or pressuring you, and you're like, oh, fine, let's eat out, But having them participate in your financial goals with you, I think that's a really good way.
Yeah, I've seen some back to school, parents will actually give them, say, you have $200.
Yeah.
Now you can buy one pair of shoes, or you can buy other things, but this is your budget.
Yep.
And you have to manage it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the hard part as a parent is letting them make that mistake.
I know.
I know. I'm going to buy those elite Air Jordans and blow it off on there, and then just wear rags to school, and right?
Your pants will get much shorter by the next year, right?
It's like, great shoes, kid, but everything else is not working out so well. All right. Next question. I want to honor my child support obligations, but the financial strain is significant, especially living in California. How can I manage my finances in a way that meets these responsibilities while also taking care of myself?
Well, I've talked a lot first, so you go first.
Yeah, I think understanding that child support is not a want; it's actually a need, and it has to be up on the higher priority. And then you have to get on a strict budget and work through that. And then maybe find a second job or do something if you need extra cash and do it that way. Not just saying, how can I maybe squeeze it in at the very last, right? It should be on the very front, right below tithing, right? And so I think that's a mindset change, right?
So it's reorienting your entire life around this is that time.
Yeah, it's a need responsibility, and it's not changing. And so instead of pushing back on it, and embrace it and work through it.
Yeah, I think you hit on something else. Like some of us are afraid to work more than just the one job.
Yeah.
Like you have to kind of, sometimes you have to get out of it, you know, get into it. So I think that's another thing that we could probably do a little bit better. I mean, the job market is very, very fruitful right now. Like there's lots of different ways that you can do different things, and so you never want, especially when it comes to child support. I think it's not a dollar figure. Like these are kids. Like it's child support, right? You're making sure you're taking care of your kids. So honoring those kids first is important. So.
Yeah, that's really good. I got a question in here through our live chat. My wife and I had some disagreement on our budgeting, so we allowed each an allowance to spend as we please. This sets a limit while giving each some personal financial space. Any advice you want to give?
Yeah, I think it's great.
I mean, that's right. That's perfect. Right on point. You go to a zero-based budget. Each get $100 a month or whatever that is, and then that's theirs. And there's so much freedom in that because there's no shame if they get $100 a month. Let's say maybe they want something for $200, they'll save it for 2 months in a row, and then they can get it. And that's so much better than hey, calling up, say, hey, I'd like to buy some for $100, and it's like your parents, right?
Yeah.
You don't need that. You have an agreement. You have a line in the sand. You work your budget, and then each one gets some fun money.
Talk about the freedom in a budget, because I don't think people think that make that connection. So
yeah,
why is there freedom in a budget?
Well, most people think freedom is restricting. And freedom is budget is restricting. Freedom is not restricting.
Yeah.
But the budget is restricting, and that's really not true. Budget is actually freedom, because you know exactly what you've all agreed on, start of the month, and then you can just go live. You're not worried about your spouse doing something out of line or something. And it's a great tool. We call it financial. I don't know if they call it, but I say financial peace is not really about money. It's really about peace with money. And so that by managing it properly, you stop worrying about it. It's not consuming your life.
Yeah.
It's just a tool so you can live.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, Rachel Cruz is one of the personalities on Dave Ramsey, and she always talks about when she's on vacation, she actually has more freedom she feels more relaxed when she's on a budget as opposed to when they used to go and just rack it up on the credit card, because you know it's like this looming thing that's in your mind, like how much
is that going to cost? It ruins your vacation.
Vacation's coming to follow you home, right? It's not going to stay there. It's coming with you. Yeah.
But if you come into it having already fully paid for it, and then you understand where it's going to go, man, there's so much more freedom. There's no guilt in that, to be able to do it. So again, and once you get into the rhythm of that, there is some peace in a lot of that. But you have to decide that that's something you want to do. You got to get gazelle intense.
And I think maybe getting out of the credit card habit.
Yeah.
Because there's no friction in it, and so they say you spend 30% more with a credit card.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so you pay for it later, but there's no friction, so you don't feel it at all. So you have a plan, and maybe use a debit card is the way to go.
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about budgeting, setting a budget. Are there any tools that you guys would suggest or offer for our audience to be able to, hey, start here. This is a great resource for budgeting. Any apps maybe that you use or?
Yeah.
Every dollar app.
Every dollar. You got it.
Go ahead.
Took it right out of my mouth.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, there is an app out there for every dollar, and it's a free app. If you want a link to your bank account, that's where Ramsey makes their money. But It doesn't have to be that way. You can have, it can share between the spouses. They can both look at the same budget, see what's going on. So if they budget $300 for food, every time they go spend, it windows off that $300, and they can sort of see, hey, we're getting towards the end of the month. We don't have any money for food. We got to starve ourselves to death. I don't know, but I mean, it's a way to manage.
A lot of ramen.
It's a way to both be working together and spending. Yeah, and it's a great tool.
Yes, it's super easy, easy to use. So yeah, I would recommend that.
That's really great. That's really great. Well, guys, that pretty much concludes our Q&A for Face Up Relationships. Actually, Pastor Brian, could you tell us about the week ahead and what we have to look forward to?
I tell you what, stretch out, guys. Stretch out, because we are going to be talking about sex this week. So I gave you a warning last week, and I'll give you a warning now. Make sure that your kids are in kids' church. Sharpen the elbows. Make sure you have good conversations later. But it really is really, really important. And as I'm writing it and getting excited about it, if you have a teenager, soon-to-be teenager, somebody that's in a dating relationship, you are engaged, if you are married, like this, I believe is going to help a ton of people, because it's going to, just like we did this week, talking about the root of where our money is at, the spiritual root. We're going to start with the spiritual root of sex, and then understand how God created it and where it gets off balance, and then give you really 5 cards to think about when it comes to sex in your relationship. But this may be one that you want to listen to a couple of times. I just have a feeling that God's really going to use it. So invite a friend and invite your kids. Make sure they're in service, but be prepared, because we're not going to pull punches. We're going to talk about the stuff.
Thanks, Pastor Brian. That sounds like it's going to be... good.
Yep,
it's gonna be good. I'll just leave it at that. I was trying to think of words. I was like, no, I probably shouldn't say that. But guys, thank you so much for joining us. I encourage you to be joining us this upcoming weekend for our Face Up Relationships message that we have coming up on sex. And then be sure to ask your questions. Follow along with this series. We're going to be meeting again next Monday to recap that particular message. That's going to be really great. Guys, we are so thankful that you could be joining us here today. If you have watched this later after the live stream, I encourage you, share this with someone, share it with a friend on Facebook or YouTube. It's a great way to be able to get the conversation to keep on going. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Tag, you're it.
fear of what comes after. We'll hold on for better days. Let our past begin to shatter. Days like these, we can see the way to live out a new chapter. Tides coming our way as we move closer to a madness. Times like these, they come and go, so let this feeling grow. Finally see what we've always known, so let this feeling grow. These days come to life like a river keeps on winding. We know this is our time. Keep the memories that we're finding. Times like these, they come and go, so let this feeling grow. Finally see what we've always known, so let this feeling grow. Times like these, they come and go, so let this feeling grow. Finally see what we've always known, so let feeling grow. Times like these. Times like these.
1, 2, need my attitude. 3, 4, 3, 4, check my latitude. Top floor, that's who in the zoo. Strut move like whoop down the avenue. Hey, I just want the finer things. I've been looking my whole life trying to find the things. I'ma take the whole pie, that's mine. Like, if you want a slice, baby, you can try mine. Hey, gimme, gimme, gimme. Give me all that good. Shimmy, shimmy, shimmy. Do it like you should.
Ooh, I like that.
Ooh, I like that. You know I don't even gotta ask. I just want it all in a flash. Every time I keep coming back. Ooh, I like that. If you like it, then I love it. Put some extra on the next one. Got me hustling to the beat. Fresher than I ever seen. Hey, I just want the finer things. I've been looking my whole life trying to find the things. I'ma take the whole pie, that's mine. Like, if you want a slice, baby, you could try mine. Hey, gimme, gimme, gimme. Give me all that good. Shimmy, shimmy, shimmy. Do it like you should. Hey.
Ooh, I like that.
You know I don't even gotta ask. I just want it all in the flash. Every time I keep coming back. Ooh, I like that.
Ooh, I like that.
You know I don't even gotta ask. I just want it all in the flash. Every time I keep coming back. Ooh, I like that.